Also ahead, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy now ramping up Republican threats to impeach President Biden.
Tomorrow, there is another high-profile case going to court, and that is the plea deal for the president's son, Hunter Biden. That has been a very sensitive case for the Justice Department. So even if they were ready to indict the former president, it is unlikely that they would want to do that at a time that could overshadow that hearing or make it seem like they're trying to distract. So that could be a consideration here. And look, we'll be looking for the grand jury again on Thursday.
See what happens on Thursday. All right, thank you very much.
Well, Wolf, it's certainly not the kind of history a First Family hopes to make, but we are going to see Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, appear in federal court tomorrow, where he is expected to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and strike a deal to avoid this felony gun charge. It'll be up to the judge to decide whether to accept this plea, but it'll be essentially Hunter Biden walking into court in Delaware and admitting that he broke the law. And as you may imagine, there's plenty of political fanfare around this. Republicans in the House of Representatives have been very interested in Hunter Biden, the Biden family's business dealings, as well as this investigation. And the Republican chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, even wrote to the judge in this case today saying, as part of this plea deal, you should consider what we've heard from IRS whistleblowers, these allegations that there was some political interference as part of this case. Of course, we've heard many denials about this from the White House, as well as from David Weiss, the U.S. attorney, who has debunked a number of the claims from the whistleblowers and even said he's willing to come to Congress and testify in the next couple of months to set the record straight.
And let me get your thoughts, Shan, while I have you. Hunter Biden in court tomorrow. What do you anticipate?
But for the fact that he's Hunter Biden, it will be a very straightforward proceeding. The judge is going to go through a colloquy with him to make sure that he understands the charges, potential punishment. No one's pressuring him to take the plea, and he's satisfied with his lawyer's services. Usually where a plea can go wrong in a hearing is if there's a dispute over the factual proffer. It's not going to happen here. They've gone over it very carefully with a fine-tooth comb. That's going to go very smoothly. It's also highly unlikely that while the judge has the discretion to turn down the plea offer, that they're going to do so. So I think it'll go pretty smoothly.
And it's a big day for the Attorney General, because as you noted, past attorneys general would have said, hey, you're ready for your evidence, go ahead. But Attorney General Merrick Garland, I mean, he's operating in a reality where he's trying very hard to restore trust in the Justice Department. And the Hunter Biden case is one of several where he is trying to convince the American public that he has had a hands-off approach, that there has been no political interference. Again, why I think that concern may loom larger than it would have in the past. So it's a really big day for the rule of law. Again, this is the son of the President of the United States, and for Merrick Garland, for people to be able to see more details. We don't know much about this deal, what happened here, and the fact that he is, at the end of the day, he's pleading guilty to some serious crimes.
Yeah, we shall see what happens tomorrow, guys.
I think a smart move by the DOJ to say any testimony by the U.S. Attorney Weiss has to be public. That's smart.
Yeah, I want to be transparent in all of this. Today, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy made his most explicit impeachment threat to date against President Joe Biden. Our chief congressional correspondent, Manu Raju, is up on Capitol Hill. Manu, what's prompting this threat, and how serious is the House Speaker about it?
Well, this had simply been in the fringes of the House Republican Conference for some time, but now it is being embraced. The idea of opening up an impeachment inquiry into President Biden now being embraced by the Speaker of the House. This, as the House Republican leaders recognize that time is running out in this year. There's precious little, they have to make a decision about whether they want to move forward with any impeachment proceeding, as the Speaker himself has threatened to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, as well as Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. But the recognition is that it simply will not be enough time, politically and otherwise, to try to move on multiple impeachments. So they're increasingly setting their sights on Joe Biden himself. This after allegations that Joe Biden was involved with Hunter Biden's business dealings and allegations from an FBI informant that have been unverified, but such that Joe Biden was involved in some sort of bribery scheme with a foreign national back at the time when Biden was vice president. Now, the White House has denied those unverified allegations, and I asked the Speaker himself whether or not Republicans have corroborated Joe Biden's ties to Hunter Biden's business dealings, and he indicated that it would be up to an impeachment inquiry to determine whether or not they can get this information, which is why he believes that may be the right course of action.
The more of this continues to unravel, it rises to the level of an impeachment inquiry. What that simply provides is that the American public has a right to know, and this allows Congress to get the information to be able to know the truth.
Well, I'm just glad to hear that the Speaker is recognizing that that we need to follow the evidence and the truth wherever it might lead us. I don't think there's any question that him speaking to that has caused a paradigm shift.
I think we probably should have moved to an impeachment inquiry probably sooner than this, but I understand. I mean, he was reticent at first.
So those last two comments coming from critics of McCarthy's in the House GOP, now embracing what he was doing, and another sign of the power of the right flank of the House Republican Conference. But even if the House were to open up a formal inquiry sometime in the fall, Wolf, it would have to actually have a vote in the full House. And if they move forward, an actual impeachment, charging the president with high crimes and misdemeanors, making him only the fourth president in history to be impeached, he would need the votes in the House to get that impeachment resolution through in a narrowly divided House heading into an election year. Very difficult, with a number of vulnerable Republicans nervous about going that route. And even as the White House today declined to comment about this effort, saying it's up to Republicans to decide what to do, Senate GOP leaders are slow to embrace that effort, Wolf. I just talked to Senate Republican Whip John Thune, the number 2 Senate Republican. He told me that it's better for the elections should be the best way to change the government, he said, is by elections. He said, I don't know what the Republicans have in the House, but he'd like to see what they have. But he believes that it's up to voters to decide to remove the president, not Congress.
Manu Raju up on Capitol Hill, thank you very much. Let's discuss this and more. Joining us, Republican strategist Alice Stewart and CNN's Nia Malika Henderson, and former Obama senior advisor David Axelrod is with us as well. Nia, why do you think McCarthy is threatening this impeachment inquiry right now? And what's the appetite that other Republicans have for it?
Well, listen, I think if you're a moderate Republican who's up for re-election in 2024, there's not a lot of appetite for this. There is a fear among some Republicans that this would actually gin up the Democratic base to sort of rally around Biden. The reason McCarthy is doing this now is because he sort of failed in terms of getting impeachment inquiries in terms of the AG or even the Homeland Security Secretary. And so now they want a bigger fish. The question is this just sort of messaging and it's not really going to go anywhere? It's sort of to please the far right of his base, to please Donald Trump as well. That seems to be what it is, because if you look at sort of the timeline that they're working with, they don't have a lot of time. Ideally, if they were to get this done, it would have to be done by the end of the year. The calendar is pretty packed. They're about to go on, I think, a 6-week recess. So there's not a lot of time. You know, this comes as McCarthy was also floating the idea of sort of wiping away Donald Trump's impeachments in the House, which is not really a thing. That seems to have gone nowhere. So we'll see if this sort of has the same fate.
We certainly will. All right, stand by. David Axelrod, the White House says it's for Republicans to decide whether to go ahead and try to impeach President Biden. What do you make of that strategy to deflect away from this escalation by House Republicans?
Yeah, well, I suspect that they recognize what Nia just said, which is this is no big winner for the Republican Party, at least in districts in which Republicans have competitive races. It's no great winner for the Republican Party in a national election. What it is a way for the Speaker, who has his head in a vice with the Freedom Caucus on one end and Donald Trump on the other, to assuage them. And Wolf, I'm not here, honestly, as a spokesperson for a party or a president. I'm here as a senior political commentator for CNN. And I just have to say, I take this very seriously, whether it's a Republican president, Democratic president. If there's wrongdoing, it should be pursued. It should be dealt with. But that's not what this is. We've had the Republicans stumbling around like so many Inspector Clouseaus for a year and a half, looking for something, anything to impugn the president. They haven't found it. And now it's like, we'll impeach, details to be determined. To quote the great Logan Roy, these are not serious people, but it is serious what they're doing, and it is seriously damaging to our democracy.
I think it's also important to point out, look, it's easy for Democrats and those on the left to try and dismiss this and say there's nothing to see here. But what McCarthy and Republicans are doing is they're following the evidence and the information. And what they're seeing is the story has changed. For years, President Biden and his administration has said he has absolutely no knowledge of Hunter's foreign business dealings. Well, yesterday, the story is that he was not in business with Hunter. That's a different story. That's singing from a different playbook. And this comes on the heels of, we're going to get information next week from one of Hunter's business partners, Devon Archer, who has, from what I understand from people in the House, information that completely contradicts the president's denials of involvement with Hunter's business. And this is going to paint a new picture. And this is certainly going to put the president in a different light. And I think they're waiting. They're being very cautious, and they're following the information as this comes forward.
What do you think?
Well, listen, I mean, we'll see if there is the appetite, I think, in the House GOP caucus. You have had investigations go on so far, this idea that there's a sort of Biden crime family trying to tie Hunter to the president. But so far, it hasn't come up with anything. So now you have McCarthy saying, well, we need this inquiry to get information that so far they haven't been able to get.